It's now been about 2 weeks since Dune Part 2 came out, so now I want to talk about its Oscar predictions and chances for 2025. I'm filming this video a couple days after the 2024 Oscars ended, and you're like, the 2025 Oscars are a very long time away. And I'm like, yeah, they are. But, I'm having a fun time here with just predicting Dune's, nomination chances. I'm not going to predict any wins, just if it's going to get nominations. I'm not going to talk about any other films because, we haven't seen any of those. I haven't seen any other films that I think are going to get nominations. I've only seen Dune, which I think is going to get a lot of nominations considering what the first one did. First one got like 10 nominations, won like 6 awards. And so that's why I'm only doing this one. I mean, I think films like Sing Sing, Furiosa, Inside Out are going to get some nominations. But I think Dune Part 2 is going to be heavily nominated. And, I don't think I'm going to get a lot of these correct. But I think that's the fun in it. Celebrate the film. I think it's fun to discuss its chances just because how much of a, achievement in film Dune Part 2 is and just how amazing that film is. So this is honestly just a whole prediction video for next year. I want to come back to this video next year to see how well we're going to do. And hopefully, next year's Oscars are as good as 2024 because 2024 Oscars were a great time, great ceremony. I thought it was a great celebration of film, especially when Ryan Gosling came out and performed I'm Just Kidding. I had a fun time with that. I think Jimmy Kimmel did a great job. But let's get to the 2025 Oscar predictions. All right, for Dune Part 2's Oscar nomination chances, I think it will get nominated for 13 different categories. Could have a chance to get 14, maybe only get 12 or 11, but I think it's anywhere in between the range of 11 to 14. I think that's the strongest area we have right now, considering I've only seen this movie, haven't seen any of the Oscar movies, so that's where we're at so far. For my more in-depth Oscar predictions for next year, you're gonna have to wait until like October, September until I see more of these movies, because I'm not lucky enough to go to any film festival, so that's why I don't get to see those movies until late. But we all know Dune Part 2 is going to get nominated for Best Picture. If we're being real, it should win this award, but with it being science fiction, it is a long road to climb, sadly, because not a lot of science fiction movies win Best Picture. I can't remember the last time a science fiction movie did win a Best Picture. I know that, a big, action kind of science fiction movie with Return of the King won, just because how monumental that film is. And people are probably thinking, and I'm thinking at the same time, will they give Dune Part 2 a lot of Oscars if there's still being, a third part is still planned with Dune Messiah? I don't think that counts because I don't think Dune Messiah counts as Dune Part 3. Dune Messiah is its whole different story. Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 are kind of like the same story. They're cut from the same book. And I think that it's very different to hold that standard, the Lord of the Rings standard, to this movie, just because Lord of the Rings felt like one big story with the 3 different books, while the first Dune book is a very different story from Dune Messiah. I've heard, and it's a big different time jump. I think that you just cannot pass up this chance to give Dune Part 2 all these awards just because how big of an achievement it is for science fiction. A new, it's a new standard for science fiction. Just how amazing this film is. Kind of brought people back to the theater once again to see an IMAX, kind of like an Oppenheimer level event. So if you awarded Oppenheimer all those Oscars, might as well give it to Dune Part 2. And I think Best Picture is its biggest chance. Best Director is also another big chance for this film. Denis Villeneuve really outdid himself for this one. It's his best movie in my eyes. It's his favorite. It's my favorite film from him now. I think that, it sucked. It really did suck when he didn't get nominated for Dune Part 1. That's crazy in my opinion. He should have beat out at least 3 of the people that did get nominated. I don't know why they didn't nominate him for that movie. I think it's something to do with science fiction, but it's interesting how, Dune Part 1 got nominated for Best Picture, but left out of Best Director. You don't really see that much. I mean, there is only 5 spots in Best Director, but I'm pretty sure he should have beat out at least a couple of those people if we look back there. But, they can't ignore what he does with Dune Part 2. It's like the amount of different staging that's going on with that movie. Each scene has to feel so perfect, and what he does, he makes every scene feel perfect. He makes it so it's about 2 hours 45 minutes, and you don't even feel like it's that long. You only feel like it's 2 hours. I felt like the pace was moving so fast. I felt like his direction was just miles above his last movie, which was Dune Part 1, which is crazy to say because his direction in that movie was insane. I think that his strongest directing in a film is probably this one. Second best has got to be Blade Runner. I can't believe how, Blade Runner didn't get really any awards considerations outside of, cinematography, VFX. But I'm pretty sure Denis is not going to get snubbed this year. If he is, we're going to have to riot. Now let's talk about the acting awards, because everyone's always wondering, is, a big film like this going to get any acting awards because it's a big ensemble? And, that's my question after leaving the movie, because I was blown away by some of these performances, and I was like, is the Academy actually going to nominate these performances? And I think what it comes down to is the competition for this year. I don't know how big the competition is going to be because it's so early in this year, but considering a lot of movies did get pushed back to next year because of strikes and all that, you could have a couple chances for some acting, for some people who act in this movie to get a nomination for this movie, because there's not a lot going to be a lot of competition. Could see a movie like Sing Sing grabbing some acting nominations. That's the only one I know so far because I saw the trailer and I think Coleman Domingo looks great. But for Best Actor, I would love for Timothée Chalamet to get nominated, because we don't know what it's going to be like for him, because I think that his performance here is really interesting because it's a very different performance in that first half compared to the second half, and I think that the second half deserves so many awards. It deserves so many awards. I think it easily gets him the nomination because that big turn in that second half, his speech to the Fremen. He has a lot of Oscar moments in this movie, especially in that second half. In the Oscars, the voters look for those Oscar scenes, and I feel like that's a big scene that you cannot pass up. Timothée Chalamet has already been nominated a couple times. I think it's 2 times so far, so this would be his third. So I'm really looking forward to see if he gets that nomination. I feel like that's the most deserving nomination you have so far, and I think that he will get it. I think, if there's strong competition, he might not, but I'm holding out like an 80% chance that he does get nominated. For Best Actress, this one I have a lot of doubt over. This one I hold like 50-50, because I doubt that Zendaya is going to get a nomination for Best Actress for Dune Part 2, because I don't think that she has a lot and strong enough moments that are considered these Oscar moments. Because, I think her performance is great. I love what she does in the last 30 minutes with her eyes, with her facial expressions. I feel like that's the best her character is in this movie. Compared to Timothée Chalamet, that's the issue you have with these large movies, with these large casts, is that you have either the best actor is going to get a lot of shining moments, or the best actress will, and it was Timothée Chalamet getting the most moments because it basically is kind of his movie, his story. But Chani, her character had a really, really sad story in the end, and I think Zendaya really sold those moments, but I don't think there's enough for her to get a nomination here. But I will say, if you're a Zendaya fan like me, I think that she has a very strong chance to get an Oscar nomination for Challengers, which does come out next month, and I think that looks amazing. I think that that's her strongest chance to get an Oscar nomination, not Dune 2, but for Challengers. For Best Supporting Actress, I think Rebecca Ferguson actually has a strong chance to get this nomination, because I feel like she has a lot of Oscar moments here, and her demeanor change after she drinks the water of life is something very impressive for her to do, and she ends up scaring you and scared me by the end of the damn movie. I was like, she's a scary person, using her voice just to trick all these people into believing the prophecy and all that. So I feel like, her turn, her, like, I wouldn't say, I don't know. Some people say it's not a villainous turn, but I think it's kind of a villainous turn when she drinks the water of life. I think that's very impressive. Her kind of like exorcism movements when she's drinking it, thought that was very impressive. I think she has a lot more screen time, and I think that that screen time will help her, especially in those smaller moments, especially when she's talking to like Paul and all that, talking to Fremen, just talking to Aaliyah out loud. I think that she has a very strong chance. I feel like the most interesting category we have to talk about here is Best Supporting Actor, because I think there are 2 strong chances for supporting actor to get a nomination for Dune Part 2. That being Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha and Javier Bardem for Stilgar. These are 2 of the strongest performances in the movie, 2 of the strongest, also Timothée Chalamet. Austin gives a transformative and scary villain performance in just a small amount of screen time. I looked at the screen time for him. He's only like 18 minutes or something, 18 to 20 some minutes in that movie, which is crazy. He only shows up like halfway in, and he leaves a huge mark with this character, especially in that first scene. And with Javier Bardem giving more of a humane performance, more of like a comedic performance, and he's just sucking up to Paul the whole movie. And that performance, why I think that could get a nomination, is because everyone I've talked to who's seen this movie, they love his performance, they love his character, love what he's doing there. And if I had, and anyone I think can like him, but if I had to pick one person out of these 2 to get a nomination, I would probably pick Austin Butler, just because of how impressive his villain turn in and is. And a lot of people were doubting him. They're like, oh, he's just going to come out and do the Austin Butler voice. But he actually came out and did, a Stellan Skarsgård impression, and it was just a very villainous performance and very terrifying performance, especially at the end. And it's a very commanding role, very physical role, I'd say, in some parts, and he just looked terrifying. I thought that he did a very great job. So I think if it were to get acting nominations, your biggest chances are Timothée Chalamet, Austin Butler, and Rebecca Ferguson. I think that it's gonna have a big chance to win adapted screenplay also, because Dune is an impossible book to adapt. We've been having these conversations for like past 5 or 6 years. We thought, it was going to be impossible for him to do the first movie. And then we're like, oh, we did it. And then it's going to be possible for him to do the second movie. Oh, we did that one too. I think, I can't remember if Dune Part 1 got a nomination for adapted screenplay. I think it did, but I think it lost that award. And I think that this one's also going to get a nomination, but I think it's actually going to win adapted screenplay. Depending on the competition, as we say, I think it's a very strong script, and I think a script It really needs to be strong in the 2 hour and 45-minute movie. And I think that this one really is. And I think that this is kind of harder to adapt than part one. Part one's a lot of world building. This one's a lot of different, much weirder elements, especially with Aaliyah being a talking fetus and a water alive element, and Lisa Nalgaib, Muad'Dib. Like, what is that? That's some weird elements, and I think they perfected the craft, perfected the script, so I think it could easily win adapted screenplay. The last awards we have to talk about are technical awards, which are some of my favorite parts of a film and favorite parts of watching a movie is seeing these technical crafts like polished and finished while watching a movie. And Dune Part 2 has some amazing technical crafts, but I think it might have a tough time with some of these awards just going because it's going to be going against movies like Furiosa. Like, look at Furiosa, the trailer looks excellent. Sure, the CGI was a bit dodgy in that first trailer, but you have to learn. Like, that first trailer was released end of November, early December. That's about 5 months away from when the movie's actually coming out, which is May. So they still got to polish the damn movie. It's not finished yet. Just wait till that second trailer comes out. I'm telling you, I think it's going to look great. And we all know how Mad Max Fury Road did. That movie did terrific at the Oscars. So I think Furiosa is going to give it a run for its money. Another movie that could have a strong chance of taking some technical awards would be Wicked. Wicked, I think, looks decent, but I think it might not win just because, it looks a little fake in my eyes, but it could easily come in there and maybe take, a costume design, makeup and hair, or a production design award. They're going to have to fight it out between Furiosa, Dune Part 2, and Wicked, but I think Dune will come out on top in all these categories, including cinematography. Greg Fraser's coming for another win. He, of course, won for Dune Part 1. Editing, the editing is so strong in this movie. Editing is so important, I think, because it helps with your pace, and if the editing is great, the pace is great and all that. Production design, wow, look at the production design. Gidi Prime, there's a lot of real sets in this one, just like Part 1. I forget who the production designer is on this movie, but they did a great job. I think they did win for Part 1. Costume design, the costumes in the Dune movies are so cool. Just look at what, like, Florence Pugh's wearing, look at what Austin Butler's wearing, makeup and hair, look at the work they do on Stellan Skarsgård for the Baron. Then you have more of the Harkonnens, like Austin Butler, all that bald cap stuff and all that. Timothy Chalamet, some makeup done on him a little bit. And then you have visual effects, some amazing visual effects. I saw someone talking about this who worked on the movie, and they're saying, yeah, the visual effects look great because the studio gave us time to work on it, gave us good deadlines. They didn't rush us, and they didn't give us last minute changes. That's all a studio has to do. Don't give the damn visual effects artists last minute changes. Give them good working conditions. Give them enough time, and that's how you're going to get great visual effects like this movie. And what Dune does so well, I think it uses a lot of visual effects, but sometimes in very minimal ways that you're not really noticing it. And these sand screens that they're using are very smart. I love what they're doing with that. And I think this could also win for sound. Just, God, it's so loud. Seeing in this IMAX is crazy, especially when the atomic explosion comes down. Love that moment. And the last award that I think it will get nominated for, might win for, is score. This one might be kind of difficult because I don't know how the Oscars feel about giving a sequel a score award, because some of the score from Part 1 is used, but I will say it's a lot of new stuff. And I feel like this score is actually better than Part 1 in my eyes, because I love the theme at the end with Kiss the Ring. I love the love theme with Paul and Chani on the desert dunes. Hans Zimmer knocked it out of the park once again. He doesn't disappoint. My favorite composer of all time. And, I will say, even though it might have a hard time winning this, I feel like it definitely should win. Before seeing any of the competition, this is the score I've been listening to for the last 2 weeks. I love it so much. It's kind of calming at times, but man, it gets me hyped up, especially with that arena kind of score that they use. So those are all the Oscar chances I think Dune Part 2 has so far. This early in the year, I know it's pretty early. I think it can rack up at least 11 nominations, with the most being about 14. I hope it gets that many, but leave your thoughts down below. How many Oscar nominations do you think Dune Part 2 will get? Make sure to leave a like. Helps it a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.